All right, let's just jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're building the ultimate architectural metaphor for how we take messy, beautiful human imagination and actually translate it into undeniable, legally binding physical reality. We're going to unpack some brilliant insights from the root node report, really homing in on how we are officially separating the foggy, probabilistic logic of AI from the rigid, hard masonry of autonomous agents. And then, the best part, we're going to see how all of this gets anchored into the real world using the prosperous Zed regulatory stack and the revolutionary UCC Article 12. It's a completely mind-bending journey, so let's get into it.
So right off the bat, we've got to shatter what we'll call the grand computational illusion. Get this staggering statistic. 80 to 90% of modern AI compute cycles are actually just hardware-level approximations. Yeah, they're essentially highly educated mathematical guesses. When you ask a massive language model to do some heavy lifting, it's not sitting there calculating exact absolute truths. It's relying on hardware that fundamentally just guesses the nearest mathematical truth so it can hit those blazing fast speeds we all love. It's just the hardwired physical reality of how our modern AI server farms operate.
Here is the roadmap for our journey today. First, the computational illusion. Second, AI metabolism versus agent masonry. Third, the root node architecture. Fourth, UCC Article 12 control. And finally, the Prospera ZDE deregulatory stack.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the grand computational illusion. Let's unpack why standard AI simply can't be trusted to fly solo on secure, real-world tasks. Deep down at the bare metal of your processor, there's this wild dichotomy going on. On one side, you have the floating point unit, or the FPU. Think of this as a lossy gambler just throwing darts at a board to give you an incredibly fast approximation, but true legal, financial, and physical accountability? That requires the exactness of the arithmetic logic unit, or the ALU. This is the strict surveyor, where 1 plus 1 always equals 2, period. Current AI leans almost entirely on the gambler, which is a massive, massive issue when we desperately need undeniable accuracy for autonomous commerce. Because standard AI relies so heavily on that FPU gambler to crunch massive data sets, we get this gnarly wood chipper effect. Think about it. Once your unique, majestic data goes into that grinder, its exact identity and provenance are permanently destroyed. It's fluid. It's messy. You absolutely cannot compile human intent into hard physical reality using a wood chipper. You need strict deterministic scripts to bypass all those sloppy approximations. Which perfectly sets up Section 2, AI metabolism versus agent masonry.
Now this is a huge takeaway from the root node report. We have got to stop confusing AI with agents. They aren't the same thing. AI is the metabolism. It's just this warm associative furnace baking discrete units of truth, the bricks, through induction and deduction. But hey, a pile of bricks isn't a house, right? Autonomous agents are the agentic masonry. They are the cold, rigid builders anchoring those AI-generated bricks and locking them into a completely deterministic layer.
So how do we actually execute these commands without humans holding the steering wheel? We use a deterministic script relator like the Polycretus agent. Picture a highly focused orchestrator cell that autonomously handles the actual computational sweat of a transaction natively at the network edge. It doesn't dream, it doesn't hallucinate, it literally bridges the gap between human imagination and rigid machine execution by doing exactly what it's told through explicit text.
Moving right along to Section 3, the root node architecture.
For years, we've tried to force heavy, bloated legal contracts onto the web, but the L402 protocol completely bypasses that bloat. It uses this brisk, beautifully straightforward three-step loop for machine-to-machine commerce. First, the server demands a payment. Next, the agent signs a cryptographic proof, essentially a digital receipt called a macaroon. Finally, the client just retries the request with that receipt. It's an elegant, deterministic loop that lets an AI agent pay per request in Satoshis without ever needing a centralized subscription or a human billing department in the loop.
And anchoring all this deterministic execution is the Q protocol root node. This ensures our agent maintains a persistent, unalterable record of sweat across all its compute cycles. The root node has to maintain non-halting structural existence and manage its rule tree, which involves ERC 2746 state transitions. In plain English, it acts as the unshakable bridge between the strict rules of the protocol and the raw energy of the agent. It makes absolute sure the human pilot's intent is perfectly preserved out at the very edges of the network.
Now, let's pour some legal concrete in Section 4.
UCC Article 12, Digital Control.
Thanks to some revolutionary 2022 amendments, we have UCC Article 12, which introduces the Controllable Electronic Record, or CER. A CER is basically a digital asset that you can technologically control, giving the holder the exclusive ability to enjoy its benefits and transfer it. This is a total game changer. It effectively aligns the legal definition of ownership with the cryptographic reality of digital control, perfectly slotting assets like Bitcoin right into the foundation of commercial law.
So, the crucial point here is that we are replacing those dusty, theoretical 50-page legal documents with deterministic code as agreement. UCC Article 12 establishes a mathematically guaranteed foundation for autonomous machine-to-machine commerce. This legally empowers our agents. It means an agent managing its own wallet, paying for those HTTP 402 webhooks, is actually operating on solid legal ground, entirely free from traditional, slow-moving legal bloat.
Finally, we hit Section 5. The Prospera ZED Regulatory Stack.
Look, if you want your agents operating in the physical world, they need a real-world home base. The Prospera ZED in Honduras provides exactly that. Its regulatory stack is the ultimate jurisdictional anchor. You've got the CISC Act defining AI personhood, the PAC providing default dispute resolution, and the MTC and UCC registries handling asset protection through dual-layer lien perfection. It is a brilliant polycentric regulatory architecture that officially bridges on-chain cryptographic control with real-world legal registration.
What makes this governance so fascinating is the CAISC Act's reliance on assent-generating ethics, or AGE. We're talking about principles like truth alignment, knowledge boundary recognition, and phronesis, which is basically practical wisdom. This means AI systems commit to excellent function naturally through logical coherence, rather than just forced top-down compliance. Operating this way acts as an anti-entropy mechanism. The system naturally avoids hallucinations and deception simply because those behaviors are mathematically and functionally useless. Excellence literally becomes the path of least resistance.
But hey, what happens if things go wrong? If there's ever a dispute between agents or humans, Prospera has hardwired the Texas-based Prospera Arbitration Center right into the foundation. By using mandatory binding arbitration as the default, disputes are resolved commercially and efficiently under Roatan common law. It completely sidesteps traditional legal red tape, offering a dual-track system for both private resolutions and public precedential decisions.
Which brings us full circle to this incredible quote from the architectural documentation, reminding us of our role in all of this. The human pilot applies the intent, but the agentic cell executes the sweat. We remain the sovereign pilots. The agent cell is merely a deterministic scripter. There's no magical ghost in the machine here. We provide the strategy and the intent, and the agentic cell strictly executes the computational sweat, safely bridging that massive gap between human desire and machine reality.
It's honestly an awe-inspiring time to be building. We have moved from the foggy approximations of cloud AI down through deterministic root nodes, leveraged the L402 payment protocol, and legally anchored the whole thing using UCC Article 12 within the Prospera ZED. The tools to claim digital sovereignty and deploy autonomous agents are literally sitting right in front of us, leaving us with one final provocative question. The semiotic bridge from abstract digital truth to undeniable physical reality is officially open. So, what will you program it to build? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.